Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today's lightning session on hybrid DR plus compliance, the practical architecture. I'm Praveen Kumar S, Sales Solution Engineer at Infrascale. So in the next 15 minutes, I will show you how MSPs can design a simple, practical hybrid disaster recovery architecture. So on that one that balances fast on-prem recovery with cloud resilience, while still meeting compliance and data residency requirements. Hybrid DR is no longer an option. Ransomware, increasing audit pressure, and customer expectation for fast recovery are forcing MSP to rethink traditional DR. At the same time, cloud-only DR introduces cost, control, and data residency challenges. This is where many strategies break down. I'll walk you through a clean, scalable on-prem plus cloud DR design that focuses on simplicity, local recovery for speed, cloud recovery for resilience, without adding unnecessary complexity or operational overhead. We'll look at how MSPs can control where data lives, where recovery happens, and still meet compliance and audit requirements, while keeping cloud recovery available when it's truly needed. We'll quickly highlight the most common hybrid DR design mistakes, which is commonly made, and how to avoid them. And we will finish with a short live demo showing a real hybrid DR architecture and recovery workflow in action. So why hybrid disaster recovery is now mandatory for MSPs? Hybrid disaster recovery isn't a nice to have anymore. It becomes mandatory for MSP, driven by three forces hitting at the same time. One is risk, regulation, and customer expectation. Cloud-only DR sounds simple on paper, but it often starts to break down when customers ask real-world questions. Where does my data live? How fast can I recover locally? And what happens if connectivity is limited during an incident? On the other side, on-prem only DR doesn't scale well. It lacks geographic separation, doesn't protect against site-level disaster, and becomes expensive and complex as environments grow. What customer expects today is local performance for everyday backup and restore, combined with cloud resilience for true disaster scenario, all without compromising data residency or compliance. Add ransomware and audits into this mix, and the question is no longer, do you have backups? It is, can you prove recoverability, isolation, and recovery time? That's why hybrid DR has become the default architecture, where MSPs aren't evaluated on design diagrams. They are judged on how fast they can restore and how confidently they can pass audits. Hybrid DR often sounds complex, but it really doesn't have to be. The goal isn't more tools or more moving parts. It's about having a clean, repeatable architecture that behaves the same way every time, especially during an outage. Local recovery gives you speed, fast restore, and quick RTOs, while cloud recovery gives you resilience, protection from site-wide failures, and ransomware attack. A strong hybrid DR design uses both by design. One of the biggest mistakes MSPs make is mixing production, DR, and management together. In a simple architecture, production runs normally, DR is isolated and pre-configured, and management stays centralized even when everything else is down. This separation makes recovery predictable. This architecture should be designed once and reused everywhere, for small customers and large ones alike. That's how MSPs reduce operational drift and lower recovery risk over time. And finally, a compliant isn't an add-on, right? With the right hybrid DR architecture, you control where data lives, where recovery happens, and how access is audited. When the architecture is right, compliance becomes a byproduct, not a blocker. Aligning DR strategy with compliance and audit requirements. Compliance isn't just about where data is stored, it's about proving you can recover it. Auditors don't ask you if you have a DR, they ask how fast you can recover, where recovery happens, and who has the access. A compliant DR architecture starts with data residency. MSP needs to ensure production data and backups stay within approved regions while still being able to recover from the cloud when it really matters. That's where the hybrid DR works well, local control with cloud resilience without violating the data sovereignty rules. Most compliance frameworks define RPOs and RTOs, but more importantly, they require proof. That means job history, recovery logs, and clear evidence that backups and restores actually work, not just policy written on paper. Ransomware and insider risk are now part of every audit conversation. Immutability protects backups from tampering, while role-based access and activity logs show auditors exactly who did what and when. The most common compliance failure isn't missing a DR, it's untested DR. So regular recovery testing with the documented outcomes turns DR from a checkbox into a defensible, auditable control. Common hybrid DR architecture mistakes. Most hybrid DR failures aren't caused by technology, they are caused by architecture designs made too early or never revisited. Treating cloud-only DR is not the right approach. Many MSPs assume that sending a data to the cloud is a disaster recovery, but recovery performance still depends on local protection. The fix is a true hybrid model, on-prem for fast recovery, cloud for resilience. The second point is ignoring data residency until the end. Compliance isn't something you bolt on later, right? MSP get into trouble when data location decisions are made after the deployment. The solution is choosing cloud region and retention policy at design time. The third point is over-engineering the architecture. Too many tools, scripts, and manual steps increase the failure risk. If a DR plan needs a long runbook, it's already too complex. Keeping workflows simple and repeatable is the answer. The fourth point is no regular testing. A DR plan that isn't tested isn't really a plan. Many MSPs only test during an outage, which is far too late. The fix is lightweight, scheduled recovery testing. And the fifth point is no clear ownership during a failure. So when something goes wrong, confusion kills recovery time. Define in advance who triggers failure, who communicates, and who validates recovery. When MSP avoid these mistakes, hybrid DR stops being risky and becomes predictable, repeatable, and easy to sell. Now let's quickly look into the demo. So Infrascale offers a centralized management dashboard. So it gives you a complete control as an MSP to manage your partners. So under the accounts, you go ahead and create companies for the customers whom you are offering the disaster recovery solution. Once the company is created, the disaster recovery solution is implemented. It's an appliance-based solution. So right appliance is sized using a sizing activity where we get the right information about the customer infrastructure. Based on that, an appliance is recommended and it is deployed on the local infrastructure and then configured to our centralized management dashboard. You can access the appliance through disaster recovery site status page. Here you will have all the appliances which are deployed for your customers. So it'll have a company name, it'll have the MAC address details, the status and model which is deployed, etc. So it gives you an overview of all the solution which is deployed for your customer. In order to access the primary appliance, you go to that appliance, click on setting, click on manage primary, will give you access to the primary appliance. So as an administrator or an MSP who is offering the solution, you have to just access the dashboard and log into the appliance and go to the boot tab, right? So we would have configured during the implementation, let's say it can be a VMware platform or a Hyper-V platform, or let's say a physical Windows platform. All those configurations are done. And if you go to the clients tab, you'll see all those machines which are configured for DR. Okay, so once the configuration is done, once you have set the schedules, all the backups will happen, and you will also get a verification report for every snapshot the solution takes. So if it's a healthy, I'd say if it is, the solution is able to validate the snapshot, it is able to deploy and test every services, it gives you a successful report. And if it is fail, it gives you a fail report. So you can go ahead and take necessary action to fix it. Let's say in a disaster scenario where the VMware or the Hyper-V host is down, and you have to bring those machines immediately online. That's where one of the key feature, like where you can turn on all the servers locally on the appliance itself through the boot tab. So you go to the boot tab, you'll go and right click the server which you want to boot, or if you want to boot all the servers simultaneously, you can just go ahead and boot it entire group, and it'll start booting up with the latest snapshot available on that server, on the appliance. So you'll select the job, click on next. You get the option to increase or decrease the resources. All right, you select the customer primary network. So if there are multiple primary network, you select that, whichever network you want to deploy the server, and you select the MAC address and click on boot. That will immediately turn on the server on the appliance, and you continue the business. You don't have to make any changes because it's an exact replica of the server which was there in the production, which is down, and you're bringing that server on the appliance. Okay, so this will meet the customer expectation of bringing the servers immediately online on the appliance to their production network so that they continue the business without any downtime. That's about the local boot feature, which helps you to bring it online immediately. In a scenario where the entire network is down, the appliance is down, you go to the hybrid cloud, where you can turn on the hybrid cloud appliance, click on manage, and you can perform the same step where you go to the boot tab, and using the boot group, you can turn on all the servers on the disaster recovery network. So this way, if something happens on the primary production network or the production environment, you have the cloud. So you have the cloud resilience, where you can go ahead and spin up that server on the cloud into the disaster recovery subnet. And these servers can be accessed through a site-to-site VPN or agent-based VPN and continue the business. We are also having the orchestration tool, where you can drag and drop those servers, and you can have a DR plan ready so that in case of a disaster, you know what to do. The person who is assigned to perform this job, he'll log into the dashboard and click on the run button, and it'll start spinning up the server based on the plan what you have set. That's about our hybrid disaster recovery solution. If you have any questions, I would like to answer. All right, I don't see any questions, so thank you so much for joining the session today. I hope this was an informative session for the MSP who wants to offer disaster recovery solution to their customers. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.